Somalia, a hard scrabble of a place at the best of times. 30 years of conflict taking their toll. Here, Ethiopian soldiers from across the border search cars entering the town of Luke. Worried about attacks by the militant Islamist group Al-Shabaab. Add in the worst drought in half a century and you're in trouble. 60-year-old Abdullahi Hassan knows it. If it continues like this, he tells us, I don't expect we'll be alive in 10 days. He's never run from drought before, but this one is different. We thought some of the animals would survive, he says, of the farm he left behind. When they didn't, we fled for dear life. Now he's one of climate change's dispossessed, living in a camp outside Luke with 4 grandchildren to feed and a 5th in hospital with severe malnutrition. The harsh reality is that even if a family can get help for a severely malnourished child, they've got other hungry mouths to feed at home and sometimes can feel compelled to sell the fortified food they've been given for a baby or a toddler to feed everybody else. Hassan traded theirs for rice. At the hospital, his daughter says her own hunger makes it hard to produce milk for her son. In town, you need money for food, she says. There is food and commerce in the market if you can afford it, but prices have doubled. This shopkeeper says the newly displaced beg him for food every day, a pressure on the town. An emergency on this scale leaves little time for building resilience. But there are some seeds of hope. Sprouting on the banks of the river circling the city, the one drawing people here. It's a project offering women a small plot of land and the chance to plant drought-resistant crops. 50-year-old Run Mohammed Abdi hasn't witnessed a worse drought than this one. But this plot, she says, is helping her find a way through it. We've passed through difficult times, she says, but I'm better now because we're getting some food from this farm. Ask her about climate change, and she says it's not the planet or God's will that has changed, but the people living on it.
Clearly, Margaret, so much aid is needed, but is it the case that some are worried that the security problems are going to cause the donors to think twice?
Yeah, well, that's certainly what people in Somalia are worried about, that people are going to give up on the country because, you know, it has this reputation of constantly being on the verge of becoming a failed state. And of course, there are the problems with Al-Shabaab in recent weeks, months, and years. But the message from aid agencies on the ground and from civil society is, yes, it's a troubled country, but all the more reason not to give up on it and to help it, and that there are still hopeful ways of doing that. We, for example, visited an outreach center in one of these big displaced people camps. They don't have medical care, but doctors come once a week. You know, they're measuring the arms of babies. It's like an early warning system in the community. They're talking to mothers, and this stuff matters. It can prevent suffering, and it can save lives.
All right, Margaret, thank you once again.